Alright, so I mentioned I'd be reviewing Godzilla King of the Monsters relatively soon in my recent review of the 2014 Godzilla movie here on the channel. And it turns out I did get to see it as early as I had planned to get to see it, so you guys are getting a review of it today. And this is going to be a pretty short review, actually, believe it or not. And I almost don't believe it myself, because especially after seeing what some other critics were saying about this movie, I went into this movie expecting to have a lot to criticize it for coming back out. And that's just not the case at all. I'm actually very satisfied with the way that this movie went. I'm going to be as spoiler-free as I can with this. I'm going to hint at a couple of things, but out of context, they won't really spoil anything, I don't think. All things said, I thought this was a really god-dang great Godzilla movie. It might have even pushed Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah down on my list to third and taken its spot as my second favorite Godzilla movie out of the ones that I've seen, at least. The crew working on this movie, it really seems like they knew going in exactly which parts of the 2014 movie they wanted to keep and which ones they wanted to scrap or rework, because there's definitely aspects of this movie that are carried over directly from that one, but I think it's all the good parts, honestly. Like, I did review that movie favorably, but at the end of the day, it's more on the forgettable side compared to other Godzilla movies. This one, not so much. It kept the plot of the various kaiju in this new Godzilla expanded universe, being the ancient gods and titans, the first ancient gods and titans that mankind ever revered or worshipped. And it kept them being part of the Earth's natural ecosystem and Godzilla's role on the top as an apex alpha predator who sets things in balance. And even established him as someone who determines what the balance should be at any given point in time. Meanwhile, King Ghidorah, or just Ghidorah as he's called in this movie, is another apex predator. And he actually shares King Ghidorah's origin, being a creature from space. As in, he is an apex predator, I would assume from a different planet, who somehow made his way to Earth, and in ancient times challenged Godzilla as Alpha, and we don't know how, but I guess was defeated for a while. But now he's free again, he's walking about, and he is once again challenging Godzilla for the role. But now humanity's here, and they know about the Titans. They know about the group from the first movie, Monarch, which was studying the Titans. And they have continued to study the Titans. And they even have their own military guys working with them, despite the fact that the U.S. military does want direct control of the project. And they believe that something like a true balance between humanity as it exists now and the Titans is achievable, whereas there's this other faction, which it looks like it's existed since before the events of the 2014 movie, but it looks like since the 2014 movie, they've kind of shifted their priorities a little bit. They're eco-terrorists who believe, now at least, that awakening the Titans, all of them, and using this device that Monarch developed called the Orca, which allows you to, in a limited way, communicate with and even influence the Titans, that using that device they can control the Titans enough to reduce Earth's population enough that the Earth will sort of get a second chance, that it'll heal from the damage that we have caused to it, because we find out that after the fight between Godzilla and the Mutos in the 2014 movie, new life grew everywhere that these creatures walked across or fought. That they create new life in their wake. There's also, once again, a couple of different layers of human involvement here. There's a family, and then there's the scientist and military groups. But this time they're a little more woven together, which I liked a lot. It kept a lot of the human scenes from being superfluous. There are a lot of scenes shot around the human aspect of the 2014 movie, which felt not objectionable, but superfluous. Like, they didn't necessarily need to be there, or didn't necessarily need to be as long as they were. Here, aside from some stuff at the very beginning establishing that the military wants direct control of Monarch, which I'm assuming is setting up for future movies in this franchise, there weren't really any scenes with the humans at all that felt like they could be lifted from this movie, and this story could still be told as effectively as it was. And I like that a lot. Like, the human element in general in this movie didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome at all, at least not to me, and I found all of the human characters likable enough, at the very least, that I didn't have a problem following them through the scenes which involved them. I actually quite liked one of them, a female scientist whose name I do not remember. I'll put an image of the actress up here so you guys know who I'm talking about if you do see the movie yourselves. She was also kind of hinted to be this universe's version of something from the lore, which I can't really say more or I'll spoil something, but I thought it was very cool. Like, even the villains in this movie, despite the fact the means by which they planned to go about it were pretty monstrous, their motives, their plan and their motives, I mean, I understand why they wanted to do what they wanted to do. They really did feel like they were doing what they thought was best for the greater good of humanity as a whole. But, I mean, genocide's never a good thing, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's pretty safe to say that once your heroic plan involved committing genocide on any level, you're at least a little bit an asshole at that point. The narrative of the movie also kind of proves definitively that their plan wouldn't have worked anyway, so that's also a thing, and I guess that does kind of annoy me about the movie just a little bit. They tried to make these characters nuanced and present their point of view as if it was an alternative way of going about dealing with this new world order that we've stumbled into, but then it doesn't work. But then thinking about it, the reason it doesn't work is because of Ghidorah himself, because of who he is as a character. So I guess that's kind of fitting. He hijacked the role of villain in this movie from the human villains. All of that said, though, despite the fact that I really did like the human element in this movie, like 98% of the time, the thing that I am happiest that they carried over from the previous movie was how much personality they gave these monsters. Holy shit. Every single one of them felt so distinct, and like an actual character, like an actual person who just happened to be a giant monster. And I can say happily that despite the fact that they didn't show her that much in this movie, Best Girl Mothra was badass every time she was on screen, taking ass and kicking names as hard or harder than any other monster we saw in this movie. They even gave us a really interesting dynamic between her and Godzilla in this movie that I look forward to seeing more of later on. And then there's the lore. Godzilla movies have always had really rich lore, but there's different phases of Godzilla movies. The continuity of them keeps shifting, so the lore has always kind of been, I don't know, on shaky foundations, I guess is the best way to say it. It looks like, though, they're really interested in establishing a solid lore for this particular Godzilla franchise and building upon it. Like, they do retcon some stuff from the first movie a little bit, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. That can be chalked up to Monarch learning more stuff about the Titans in the, 5 years since that movie came out? Because keep in mind, 5 years have passed in universe as well. They also laid the foundation for some of the super technology you see in Godzilla movies from time to time. Like, Monarch in this movie operates on this giant plane that's a flying fortress comparable to something like a helicarrier. It was super cool. And on top of that, this movie did lay little bits of groundwork for this expanded universe in ways which didn't feel intrusive at all, because they kept most of them to a montage of newspaper clippings that they showed during the credits of the movie. Just little quick flashes of hints and teases of things to come. And also that they may have plans to bring either Mecha Godzilla or Mecha King Ghidorah into this version of the Godzilla verse. And I don't really care which one they go with. I'm just psyched to see either of them in a future movie with this level of special effects wizardry. I couldn't be more excited about it, honestly. That, I guess, would be the word of the day. at the end of the day. Excited. This movie excited me a lot. It really got my blood pumping. I had a ton of fun with it. I think it's a really good Godzilla movie. Maybe not a really good movie in general. I do think, just like the first one, you kind of have to go into this already being a Godzilla fan, or already being someone who would be a Godzilla fan if you were exposed to Godzilla movies, in order to really enjoy this movie. But as a Godzilla movie, and that's what I'm rating this as a Godzilla movie, this is like an 8 or a 9. It's really high up there. I disagree a lot with a lot of the criticisms that other critics are levying against this movie. I think it's really great. And if your tastes tend to align with mine, or you are a Godzilla fan, at least on the same level that I am, I think you'll probably agree with me. So if that sounds like you, definitely go see this movie. This is the kind of movie that you're gonna want to see on the big screen if you have the opportunity. The action in this looked spectacular, and I'm sure it's gonna look spectacular on the small screen as well once this comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. But you really should try to find yourself a chance to go see it on the big screen first. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to come up with another, even small criticism to levy against this movie, but I can't really think of one. I've already said everything that I didn't think was quite up to snuff with this movie. I've already said it. There's really nothing more about this movie that I didn't entirely like. Like, maybe they could have shown more lower angles of the fights to really sell the scale of the monsters, but then we wouldn't have gotten some of the spectacular shots that we got in this one, so I don't really want that. So really, there's not more to say about this movie. I liked it a lot. It's not perfect, but it's pretty gosh darn good. As per usual though, guys, what did you think of Godzilla King of the Monsters, if you have seen it? Though do try to keep your comments spoiler free. This movie is very much an experience, so it would really be a shame to rob others of the chance to experience it for themselves. But still, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over my Discord, link in the description. And really quick, while I've got you guys, I do want to assure you that I am going to be getting back to my regular review schedule starting next week. It would have been this past week, but a couple of things came up that just made it easier to put it off a little bit longer. Though I do think I'm gonna continue to mix up what kind of longer form video I put up on Thursdays. Maybe I'll settle back into a theory or analysis every single Thursday like I had been doing, but I do want to try and expand my content a little bit. So I'm gonna do that and see what happens. I think it's gonna be fun. Either way though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.